Hi everybody, I'm Jason Whipkenberg, and we thought we'd put a video out today just to share with you some information about the EVSC budget, something maybe you've heard about, maybe not know a lot about. We're in the cycle now where we are actually getting school board approval for our new 2-year budget, so we thought it'd be a good time to share this information with you. So I'm joined by two people who can tell us everything there is to know about school finance. We have Dr. Carl Underwood. Carl is our Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations, and we have Courtney Bolivar, who is our Director of Budget. So between the two of them, they're going to be able to tell us a lot about school finance. So Carl, let's start with you. People may have heard that this year, through actions of the Indiana legislature, there is a change in the funding for schools as far as the funds themselves. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. A big change this year that was a reaction to House Enrolled Act 1009. We now have two funds, the Education and the Operations Fund. The Education Fund would be for our expenses directly related to things that happen inside the school.
Academically related.
Academic related.
Okay.
The Operations Fund is now for the operation of the school district, and it combines our former funds, the Bus Transportation Fund, the Bus Replacement Fund, capital projects, our Art Institute, and Historical Society funds. So pulls all those together into one fund.
Okay, so let me ask you this as a follow-up. So people may have heard this in the past, that you operated out of these different funds, and it was pretty specific on where the money was in each one of those funds. Is this giving you more flexibility? Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes, it gives more flexibility with pulling everything into one fund, but with that greater responsibility. So you have to really manage your budget very closely.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Courtney, let me ask you this then. So when we're talking about the budget funding, and we of course have expenditures, we have revenue.
Correct.
What does that look like? When we talk about revenue, this school corporation, the budget you're putting forth, I think, is over $230 million.
Correct.
How does that money come to us? Where are we getting that money?
We actually get our money once a month from the state, and that is our basic tuition support, and that's normally around the 15th of the month. And then we get our property taxes, which is what we used to do for our capital projects, Art Institute, Historical Society, Transportation and Bus. You get that twice a year, one in June and one in December. And then your federal grants you do after you've already expended the money. You get that twice a month as well. So you're kind of getting all these different funds kind of all at different times throughout the year. So basic tuition support once a month, property tax funds are twice a year.
Okay, so for those of us that don't work in school finance, then when you say we get that money, am I making an assumption that would be correct when I say it just hits our account, so to speak, as a deposit?
It hits our bank account normally the 15th of the month for the basic grant, and the property tax settlement comes in twice a month, and it's directly deposited into our bank account as well. And then we reconcile that into all the different accounts.
Okay. And then obviously we have our list of monthly expenditures, of course.
Yes.
And for us, Carl, am I right in saying for any school corporation, really our top expenditure obviously is our people. We're a people-driven business that is based on the staff that we have.
Absolutely. We invest heavily in our people. That's what our job is. So in looking at this year, when we put the budget together for 2019, the Education Fund, and looking at what the expenditures were going to be, it was over 98% was going to be spent on people.
Okay. So, obviously the people it takes to run our schools, to drive our buses, to work in our cafeterias, that type of thing, and many other positions.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and of course we have 3,400 employees or thereabouts, so obviously it does take a lot of money just to fund the salaries and benefits for all these employees. So, Courtney, tell me a little bit about this, because I know this is a tricky thing in school finance. You talked to us about the money coming into the school corporation, but am I right in saying there are times where that money is delayed or significantly delayed or doesn't show for quite a bit of time, money that you were counting on, correct?
That is correct. Perfect example is federal funds, that money that we count on for our grants. What happens is you actually have to spend the money before the state will give it back to you. So that is only done twice a month. So you're upfronting money on grants, but you're waiting for the state to pay you back for all your expenses. So it's you have to have nice flow of your money to make sure everything is on track, that you can operate how you want to with those grants.
Okay. So would a good analogy be for all of us that have our pay coming from EVSC going into a checking account, we have our money that we know is being allocated for bills, what have you, expenses for your family. where we know the money is going to come in every 2 weeks when we're paid. You're saying there are sometimes you're expecting a payment and it may be delayed, so you have to plan for that and account for that.
We do. Yes, we do.
Okay. Hopefully this is kind of helping you a little bit to understand the budget. Carl, since we said that we are in the process of getting formal board approval for our next 2 years of budget, when does this work start? When did you start planning for this budget within your office?
Yeah, so we will hopefully in September have the board approve the budget. Okay. The work for the 2019 budget really started in February. Lots of planning. Courtney does an amazing job gathering information, historical amounts that we've spent on prior budgets, and using that to lay out the plans for the budget for 2019. Okay. So it's a long process. The board will hopefully approve the budget in September, and then the Department of Local Government Finance has to approve that, and we won't receive word on that until just about the first of the year. So it's just about a year-long process to put it together.
So would I be correct in saying that with 40 schools, those facilities, approximately 23,000 students, approximately 3,400 staff members, that in some ways, while we are a large school corporation, we're basically a business in many ways when it comes to finance.
Absolutely. It's a $250 million business, just like anything else, and we have to have expenditures and revenue meet the expenditures, so we're constantly working on it.
And we have to have cash flow that can pay when it's time for employees to be paid and bills to be paid and that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Courtney, I want to touch on something with you that Carl mentioned. With the new way the funds are through the state, I know he said it does give us some greater flexibility, and I think for us in EVSC, we're so committed to be a financially sound district, and we put so much effort. I don't foresee that being an issue, but I know he said something about it could be challenging for districts if they don't pay attention. Can you explain a little what that means?
Sure. In the past, you always had your separate funds. Well, now the transportation, CPF, and bus are all going away. So in the past, we always knew how much you could spend to buy buses on your buildings. This is all going to be rolled into one fund. So we need to ensure what we want to spend on buses we don't take from somewhere else. So you just kind of have to be fiscally sound on what you're spending your money on. Because when you look at it, it's all in one fund. It's hard to distinguish which is for buses, which is for capital projects. So in our area, we're going to have to be fiscally minded on this is how much is set aside for buses, CPF, and only spend on that allocations.
So I guess what you're saying, since you mentioned school buses, and we have to replace buses periodically to meet safety guidelines. So you're saying for a district, while it could be tempting to use money on a given year that you had allocated maybe for buses on something else, eventually that could come back to haunt you if you're not prepared then to upgrade and purchase new buses when that needs to happen.
Correct.
Okay. So a lot of long-term planning. You have to really carefully monitor everything going on. Let me ask you this, Carl. I know when a lot of people think about the overall school budget, again, we have 40 school facilities. We have other facilities that are tied to the education of our students beyond those 40 school facilities. Capital projects, which is the money that we take to maintain and for our facilities and for our buildings. I know people probably wonder, how is that decided where we spend money? And I know we carefully prioritize projects, but talk a little bit about capital projects funding.
Yeah, so for capital projects, we're required to have a 3-year plan. And so the Daryl Angermeyer and Facilities helps to put this together. It's a plan that will list everything from roof replacements to maintaining and renovating our buildings. And it's on a cycle, just like anything else. So we know, a roof has to be replaced after so many years, and when you have 40 or more buildings, that's just kind of what determines our year-to-year plan, if you will, for capital projects.
Parking lots, I think, kind of fall into that same category. But kind of like at your house, maybe not as glitzy as getting a new kitchen or bath, but certainly you still have to maintain parking lots, still have to maintain roofs, HVAC systems, things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Carl, I do want to ask you this as well, and I know a big part of how we've been able to be on such sound financial footing for a number of years now is because how we have really gotten control of our healthcare expenses and health insurance. And for this new budget that's being proposed to be approved hopefully next month, I know we've said that for the 5th consecutive years, EVSC employees will not see an increase in their health insurance costs, which that to me is amazing. And when you follow national news, you see that that is certainly not the trend nationwide. So explain to us, Carl, how have we been able to do that in EVSC for the 5th year in a row now?
Yeah, it certainly hasn't been the trend across the United States. I think a couple reasons. One, we've implemented the health and wellness centers.
Okay. You're talking about the clinics?
The clinics, absolutely. Okay. And then the other reason, we've gone to a marketplace for insurance. So,
and what do you mean when you say a marketplace?
In the past, we really only had one model or one plan that you could pick for health insurance. Now employees have options, and with those options, it just depends on what the needs are of your family. And so it gives the flexibility to choose different plans. But a big trend, or the big help, I think, has been the health and wellness centers. Okay. Employees able to take advantage of those, and it keeps spend off of our health insurance plan, which keeps those costs down.
Well, and I've heard you say that before, and I want to make sure people understand that, because I know for me, for my family, the health and wellness centers have been phenomenal. You go and you see a nurse practitioner at no cost. If it's the type of prescription drug that we carry and we're adding to that list on a monthly basis, there's no cost. So I'm always amazed how something that is free and is such a strong benefit can actually save the corporation money. How is it that it's actually cheaper for the corporation, even though it's not costing us anything as employees to utilize it?
I think just staying off of the health insurance plan. The plan we have right now is with Anthem, and it's just cheaper to use the clinics, for instance, to
cheaper for the school corporation to operate the clinics than to just turn it over to Anthem. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, great. And Courtney, just touch on then one more question about insurance with the marketplace. So just to remind people, the marketplace is effective because, am I right in saying, based on what you expect the healthcare cost for you and your family, to choose options, and what we're getting at is the amount of deductible you're paying.
Correct.
And the amount of monthly fee for
Correct.
that and how that balances.
Yes, that's correct.
So someone who doesn't anticipate many health costs, hopefully that works out, they would want a higher deductible plan, but a plan that is costing them much less on the month.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, all right. So Courtney, now another question I have for you is an event coming up that people in schools know about, and in schools we refer to it as Official Enrollment Day. So, and I know you may call it Count Day.
Correct.
But why is that so key, that Official Enrollment Day, to you all in the business office?
As we stated earlier, we get our basic tuition support once a month. That official count date tells us how much money we're going to get based off that official count date in September. So it's very important to us that we make sure we count all our students, because that's how we get our state tuition support from the state, based off the number of students that we have enrolled that day.
So that is why on that day it's so important when principals and teachers work together to make sure that every single student is counted, because that's what determines a big part of our funding.
Yes, for the year, yes.
Carl, let me ask you this. In EVSC, as we have really worked to become such a financially sound district, a big part of that is being efficiently run school corporation. And I know we are simply looking for cost savings at every corner of the school corporation. So if we can save $1 in one area, we can take that dollar and invest it back into classrooms and return it to employees as well. So I know one of those areas is transportation. Obviously, we have a large transportation system in EVSC with all of our school buses. So talk to us for a second about how is it that we are able to have an excellent transportation system, but at the same time save some money within that?
I think there's a few reasons. We are always looking to be run efficiently, so we're looking at the number of routes that we have across our entire county. If it's possible to combine some of those routes with buses that may not have as many students, we'll do that, so we'll save money there.
And technology helps us with that, right?
Absolutely.
We actually have technology that helps us with the routing. It's not simply done by hand like it would have been many years ago.
That's correct. Yeah, we invest heavily in that to be fiscally responsible with our transportation department.
Obviously, fuel costs go down the fewer if you can combine routes.
Absolutely, save money on fuel. We don't idle anymore. Money has been saved just if we're going to have buses parked for any amount of time to turn the buses off, and we save thousands on fuel that way.
So, I just want to hit on that. I do think that's interesting. So you're talking about, for example, in the winter, buses line up at a school, they're there 15 minutes before students come out. If they continue to idle like they would at one time, obviously it costs more fuel when you have well over 200 school buses on the roads every day.
Absolutely. It makes a difference when you start looking at the numbers that we have for a district our size.
So they don't turn on the school bus until they're ready to leave the school once
That's
the
right.
students have loaded.
That's
okay?
right.
And then I've heard you talk before about our mechanic fleet and how we take care of that. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so we have outstanding mechanics and so
That work for us.
That work for us and keep our buses running. So we're not having to replace them as often as maybe other districts might. And so that's a great way that we use to save money for the school district.
Okay, perfect. So we hope this has been helpful to you today. This is a complicated process, but obviously it has a direct impact on everything that all of us do in our jobs, everything that is done with our students in all of our school facilities. So again, we hope this has been helpful, and we appreciate you tuning in today. Thank you.